Good morning, my name is Ryan West. I'm currently the athletic director at Regis Jesuit High School and also serve on the board of directors for CHSAA. But prior to this year, I spent my last 32 years in public schools, primarily 24 of those years in Jefferson County, and that's where I had the great opportunity to meet my wife and my best friend and the person that we're honoring today to induct into the Jeffco Athletic Hall of Fame, Catherine West. Little background on Catherine. She grew up in the Denver area, grew up in southeast Denver, started her education life in Denver public schools, then moved on to St. Louis Catholic School, and then went to high school at St. Mary's Academy in Inglewood, where she graduated in the early 90s. She then moved on to Creighton University, where she received her degree in sports medicine, and throughout her time at Creighton University had a chance to work in many different sports with some amazing athletes, including Major League pitchers Andy and Alan Bennis. She began her athletic training career in Jeffco in 1995 when she was hired by Steve Antonopoulos and Denver Broncos Sports Medicine. At the time, that was kind of the start of a huge district-wide athletic training program, and she was one of the first people to get in. In fact, that first year, she wasn't just at Columbine, she split time between Alameda and Columbine high schools, going to the schools every other day and then covering all of the games. Then she became full-time athletic trainer at Columbine in 1996. Funny story of how I actually got to meet Catherine and know who she was and learn her name. We were coaching a football game down at All City Stadium in DPS in 95, and I remember one of our players was out on the field. He got hurt, he was down, he was rolling around in pain and yelling, and you could hear it all the way up into the stands and everything, and I'm looking around, I'm yelling, "Trainer! Trainer! Trainer!" And I did not see where our athletic trainer was, and then all of a sudden I felt something bump in to my stomach, and I looked down, and she goes, "I am right here, and my name is Catherine." I said, "Okay, Catherine, we have somebody hurt out there on the field, but it's nice to meet you. I'm glad I know your name now." And so that's kind of how we first bumped into each other and got to know each other. But I think that story tells her passion about her job and how she really wanted to be respected and how important athletic training is to the athletic programs, not just here in Jefferson County, but state and nationwide. Andy Lowry, the football coach at Columbine High School, said, "Congratulations, Catherine, on this well-deserved honor. She started at Columbine as a young athletic trainer and worked extremely hard, dedicated herself to her profession and the athletes. Catherine was loved by all the athletes because they knew she cared so much about them. She continued to strive in athletic training and became the leader in her field. We were blessed and grateful for all she did for us at Columbine and always fighting for the safety of our athletes." In fact, at Columbine, she held a bunch of roles, not just athletic trainer, but she worked as a clinic aide, she was a testing coordinator, she was a substitute teacher, she volunteered to chaperone field trips. In fact, on the day of the tragedy in 1999 at Columbine, she was working with a group of girls in the clinic, and they were getting ready to go do some injury rehab stuff at lunch when all the chaos broke loose, and she was responsible for getting all those girls out of the building to safety and evacuated over to Clement Park, always jumping in and doing whatever it took. Kevin Land, the former athletic director at Columbine High School, said that Catherine was so much more than just an athletic trainer at Columbine. She was always willing to pitch in for the good of the school. She assisted in the clinic, helped sponsor band trips, helped sponsor dances, and was always willing to help anyone and everyone with a smile on her face. In fact, our first daughter, Taylor, when she was born in 2006, it was the day that Columbine won the state baseball championship that year. I remember it vividly, and she was so bummed out because we were down at All City Stadium the day that they won the semifinal game, and her OB called us up and said, "We're going to the hospital tonight. We got to go to the hospital tonight. We're having that baby tomorrow." And she was just distraught that we were going to miss that state championship game. And so we're down at St. Joe's Hospital getting ready to have our first kid. And at the time, this was just kind of we didn't have all the fancy video streaming and all that we have now, so we were kind of listening to it through this streaming radio. And I remember as we're getting ready to have our child, she got mad at me because I was paying more attention to the game than I was to her and what was going on. But at the same time, she wanted to know what was going on too. And sure enough, CJ Gilman slides across home plate with the winning run that afternoon. And 15 minutes later, literally 15 minutes after Columbine won the state championship, our first daughter, Taylor, was born. And then, true to form, Catherine and Taylor, and 3 days later, we were at Columbine at the state championship rally celebrating with the team and everybody else. And that was Taylor's first experience at Columbine High School. Her whole first year, she was raised there. She was raised in that training room with the kids, the student athletes. In fact, her first word that she ever said was ice, because she got so used to asking for ice from the ice machine. Her very first word that she ever said was ice, and that's because of Catherine as an athletic trainer in that training room. She left Columbine in 2007 and took on the role as coordinator for the trainers for all 18 high schools in the school district. She also served on the advisory committee for the sports medicine program at Warren Tech. She served on the SMAC committee and the concussion protocol task force for CHASA, and her work and passion shaped the way that athletes are returned to play today, not just in Jeffco, but across the state. Mitch Seaman, who's an orthopedic surgeon and was an advisor for the program through Panorama Orthopedics, said that Catherine was a fierce advocate for the health of students in Jefferson County, and she was just an absolute joy to work with. Jim Thifault, former Jeffco AD, added that Catherine was the consummate professional. I always knew when I was talking with her individually or bringing her into any meeting or conversation, we were getting advice shaped in knowledge, competence, and expertise. She managed the training staff at 18 different high schools, including scheduling approximately 360 varsity sports cumulative amongst all those schools. There was one thing that was very clear: she always had the best interest of the student athletes in mind. Ultimately, Catherine left Jeffco in 2023 after nearly 30 years of service. She helped build the district ATC program up to what it is today. She set the standard for excellence in care and has now come to be expected from every athletic trainer at every high school. She continues to stay up to speed the latest trends in sports medicine and now serves the student athletes in Douglas County. Frank DeAngelis, retired principal at Columbine, said, "I had the honor of working with Catherine West in my career at Columbine High School. She was one of the best athletic trainers I ever worked with throughout my career. She not only did a great job of taking care of student athletes physically, but also inspired them to do their best. She's a credit to the profession, and I've been blessed to have her in my life." Well, Frank just stole my line. I too have been blessed to have her in my life. It's been amazing to watch her passion and her purpose grow in this field, but more importantly, to see that glow on her face whenever she's able to help out a kid, regardless of circumstance, regardless of challenge, but always finding a way to make the lives of those around her better. I'm truly blessed to have her as my wife, as my best friend, and it's an honor to induct Catherine West into the Jeffco Schools Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Vince Dowd. I'm the current boys basketball coach at Wheat Ridge High School. I'm coming from you today at Tommy Dowd Gymnasium inside Wheat Ridge High School to present my dad to the Jeffco Hall of Fame class of 2025. I want to kind of start with a coaching background for my dad and a timeline. My dad's early years of coaching actually started in the Denver Police Athletic League. It was a league that my grandpa, Mike Dowd, started as a way to give Denver community members a way to get their kids involved in sports. It still exists today. And, you know, my dad started by keeping the book, running the clock, officiating games, and when he was old enough, coaching his own teams. He met some really important people during those years, people like Irv Brown and his lifelong friend Bill Gold, who was a popular Denver coach for a long time. In 1987, my dad got his first job in Jeffco coaching at Bear Creek. He was the freshman boys and basketball coach and a freshman football coach. He eventually became the defensive coordinator on the football team and JV basketball coach and assistant varsity coach. He met some really important people to him during those early years at Bear Creek, including Ed Kintz, the football coach, really taught my dad a lot about coaching football and gave him a really good framework to use going forward in his football career. Gary Goings in basketball and Steve Hyatt as well in basketball were really influential. When I was old enough to play for my dad, I realized that every time we played Bear Creek, they were running the same things that we were. And it was that coaching tree really is still going in Jeffco. After 8 years at Bear Creek, my dad took the head coaching job at Stanley Lake High School. He worked with some great people at Stanley Lake. He was only there for a short amount of time, 3 years. He started coaching with Joe Wallen at Stanley Lake High School, someone that was going to be really important in his coaching story. One of my dad's all-time favorite players played at Stanley Lake for him. His name was Troy Chubb. He was all Colorado, all-state basketball player, when my brother and I were kids, we would always argue about who was going to be Troy when we were playing each other on our mini hoop in the basement. So those were some really good, that was how my dad kind of cut his teeth as a head coach. And then in 1996, an opportunity presented itself that he felt like he couldn't pass up. He accepted the boys basketball job here at Wheat Ridge High School. Something that many people don't know is that the athletic director at the time, Mike Collins, actually hired him to be the basketball coach and the baseball coach. My dad ended up not doing the baseball job and focused instead on the two sports he cared the most about, which was basketball and football. He was the head coach at Wheat Ridge for 28 years in boys basketball. He won the league 4 times, was a 4-time coach of the year, had over 220 wins, was state runner-up in 2001, 2002, and he was able to coach some great players while he was here at Wheat Ridge, including Andy Morrell, Tony Hutt, Tony Bowling, Brian Hutt, Ryan Routson, Tyler Weston, the Orms brothers, Vedin Kozik, Julian Clausen, Wes Miller, just a litany of names that were really important to my dad and the program that he built here at Wheat Ridge. Is equally important were the assistant coaches that my dad had while he was coaching here at Wheat Ridge. It's not a long list. I'll start with Coach Mulligan. He's been at Wheat Ridge, is currently coaching here, and he's been with my dad all but the very first year my dad was the head coach. And they were both young coaches at the time, and what was unique was that Sean is just a loyal guy, Coach Mulligan. He was never looking to take another step. He was always happy coaching the 3rd level. He's still happy doing it today. So, that consistency when you have that in your lower level coaches is not very common, and it was a big part of why the program was successful. I mentioned Coach Wallen, Joe Wallen, earlier from Stanley Lake. He followed my dad from Stanley Lake to Wheat Ridge, and he was a remarkable coach in his own right. He taught at North Glen High School and had a really great career coaching boys and girls golf there. And he was just a people person. He related to kids. He gave a different perspective that my dad and Sean weren't always giving. And then my Uncle John, he had a couple different stints coaching with my dad here at Wheat Ridge. And I know my dad was always really proud that he got to coach with his older brother. And it really would have made my grandpa proud that they were coaching together for all of those years. And with all those players and coaches, my dad created quite the basketball legacy here at Wheat Ridge. You knew 2 things when you played Wheat Ridge when my dad was coaching. They were never going to get out-toughed or outworked during a game. They were going to play their hardest. And that you better be on your A game as an official. There were some tough nights in here. Some great Jeffco rivalries while my dad was coaching here. First with Bruce Dick at Green Mountain, Scott Habe at Evergreen, John Anderson at Golden, Eddie Reeves, the late Eddie Reeves at Arvada West, and even down to current coaches like Mike Puccio at Green Mountain and Stanley Lake. Those rivalries were really the lifeblood of Jeffco basketball, and they still carry on in a lot of ways today. Many people don't realize the football resume that my dad put together over his 30-plus year coaching career. At Wheat Ridge as the defensive coordinator, he was part of 5 league championships. He won 1 state championship and was the runner-up another year. And there's just an outstanding list of former football players that my dad was able to coach. But I think if you asked him, he would say 3 of his favorites were Zach Magalai, the Gallimore brothers, and Parker Orms, who's a Jeffco Hall of Fame inductee as well. He was able to coach with some amazing coaches here at Wheat Ridge, including Ed Stevens, Lee Coons, Reed Call, and a ton of assistant coaches that he's still friends with to this day. Coach Dowd would spend the last 10 years of his career coaching boys and girls golf. He was honored with the Coach of the Year in girls golf one year, and I think he would even say that golf might have been the best gig that he ever had coaching. What really made Coach Dowd and my dad who he is and how he's remembered is how he treated people. When I was young, I would watch him do things and I didn't understand it at the time. For instance, when I was a 9th grader, after every practice, we drove a kid home that was 40 minutes out of our way every night, whether that was 10 p.m., early in the morning. And he just did it because he wanted that kid to get home safe. And that's just like a single example of that. Whether it was his time, his money, or his effort, he was always there for kids. When you played for Coach Dowd, he just instilled a sense of pride in your team and confidence. He was a great motivator. His teams always played with a toughness that made up for any lack in talent that they had. During this time, he was also a teacher. He taught economics and business at Stanley Lake, Wheat Ridge, and Bear Creek. And he ran DECA and Senate as well, which are full-time jobs in and of themselves. So I don't know how he did that. Coach Dowd is still involved in athletics here at Wheat Ridge today. He's a mentor to me and other young coaches that, his experience is invaluable to us, and I really can't imagine doing it without him. You may see some people in Jeffco or around the state with more wins or other accomplishments, but you aren't going to find somebody that had the impact on their community like Coach Dowd had in 3+ decades here at Wheat Ridge. As I've gotten older, I've really wondered how my dad had time for all of this. He coached a sport every season, worked a job with Coach Wallen in the summers, and still was totally available to me and my brother and my mom. He coached our Little League teams. He took us fishing. We played golf all the time. To me, he was just always around despite being as involved as he was. I still don't know how he pulled that off. I'm lucky to be able to share these experiences with my dad, and they're still going today. My brother and I have always looked up to my dad, just like I know he looked up to his. And Dad, I just want to tell you congratulations on this honor. I think it's well deserved. The amount of time and effort and as many kids as you've helped in your career is amazing, and we're really proud of you.
Hi, I'm Dave Sauer, former wrestling coach, Golden High School. It's a pleasure and honor to present Brooke Durham, formerly Brooke Sauer, for the Jeffco Sports Hall of Fame. Little backstory on Brooke, how she got started in this. She had been about 8 years old, and I was a volunteer coach with the Pomona Youth Program, and I would go to practice, and she always wanted to go with me, so I'd take her. And she'd roll around on the mat with the kids, and I'd bring her back, and I'd say, just hang here with me, and then I'd turn around, and she'd be wrestling with somebody else, just having fun. Well, every week she'd go. Finally, one week, I kept telling my wife, I'm not sure about this. Boys, and wrestling and all that. So finally one night we go to practice, and I'm helping kids, and I look down, and she's got a singlet on. She had wore it under her clothes and took her clothes off, and I said, man, this is real. She really likes it. So a lot of discussion about it, and this and that, and I came from the days that girls didn't wrestle, so we were fine with it and thought it was great. Well, now here's the end of the story. February 11th, 2004, she was first female state qualifier, the men's state wrestling tournament. Her goal wasn't to be the first girl to qualify for the men's state tournament. Her goal was to win the state tournament. And in this wrestling room, and the old school wrestling room, we didn't use her being a girl as an excuse or a reason or anything like that. We helped her achieve her goals on her own. I mean, she worked hard. She worked harder than anybody. A lot of losses, a lot of wins. But wrestling isn't always how many times you get your arm raised. It's about what you've learned and what you've accomplished deep inside yourself. Wrestling's a tough sport, physically, mentally, and all of that. Brooke made everybody better. She made the coaches better. She made the officials better. She made the administrators better because she was accomplishing things that girls hadn't done yet. She made her opponents better. There were kids that were lesser than her on the mat, but they weren't going to get beat by a girl, and they worked hard, and she, there were times that she lost to a lesser opponent. And as a coach, you had to explain it to her, that there's some things that motivate you, and that's what motivated her, not because she was a girl, but because she wanted to do what everybody else was doing. Our team was better. She was the captain for junior and senior year. We won duels we probably wouldn't have won. We won tournaments. We accomplished a lot as a team because of her leadership and the way she works with the guys. on the team, and they respected her. There was never animosity because she was the captain, the coach's daughter as a captain. That's not why she was the captain. She was the captain because everybody on the team said she should have been. She was student body president here at Golden. She did a lot for the students. She gave the speech at graduation, so it wasn't just in this wrestling room and on the mat in the gym that made her who she is. She had the mindset of a wrestler. It had to overcome obstacles. Wrestlers, you know, are famous for having, you know, somebody they look up to. You know, me, it was Dan Gable, and you think of all these other great wrestlers. Well, the person that inspired her was a kid from back east, no arms and no legs, Kyle Maynard. She read his book over and over and over. He was a football player. He wanted to play football. Well, no arms and no legs is a little tough, so he picked up wrestling, and I'll be darned, you know, he was a state qualifier. And so those are the things that inspire her. You know, her mindset was you got to work harder in the competition, and she knew that she had to work harder, and she did. And you win from losing. Like I said, there were times that she lost to a lesser opponent, but she learned from it. That, by God, you just got to go out there and you got to work hard every single day. And she did. She worked hard every single, no complaints. She had great fans, mom, dad, brother, sister. So it was quite an amazing feat that she did. In the end, you know, the media that was in that room was crazy. Phone call you get. So she accomplished quite a feat, being the first female in a men's world. And look at wrestling today. The women have saved our sport, in my opinion. It's big nationwide, not just in Colorado, but we have all women's wrestling now. So I think that's super cool, and I think she's responsible for that. So I just want to congratulate my daughter Brooke for being inducted into the 2025 class of Hall of Fame, Jefferson County Hall of Fame. Well deserved.
Hello, my name is Tim Walker, and I am honored to introduce Heather Hoy Martin into the Jeffco Athletic Hall of Fame. She is so deserving of it. She graduated from Stanley Lake High School in 1994, and she is one of the best athletes to ever come out of this school. I'm fortunate to have known Heather since she was in 7th grade, where I met her and was her 7th grade social studies teacher. And then she came up through Stanley Lake. I'll tell you all about her athletic career, but I met her again when she was a senior when I started teaching here at Stanley Lake. She's an amazing woman, and we'll see all about that as we go. So I taught here at Stanley Lake, and then I became the athletic director. And by the time Heather was done with her collegiate career, she came back, and I was fortunate enough to hire her as an assistant volleyball coach, and then a couple years later as the head volleyball coach, and she taught here. A little bit about Heather's high school career. She's a very competitive person, does not like to lose. Growing up, she has two brothers. Kevin's her older one, Sean's her younger one. They would compete at track meets at their house that their dad would set up for them, and she always liked to win those meets. She didn't start playing volleyball until she was a freshman in high school, and then ended up being the MVP and the Athlete of the Year for Jeffco schools as a senior in volleyball. She's a state champion high jumper in track and excelled in all of those sports at Stanley Lake. As a matter of fact, first team all-conference in all 4 years as a track athlete, or all 3 years as a track athlete at Stanley Lake. And then as a volleyball player, first team all-conference, first team all-state, a Rocky Mountain pace setter MVP, female athlete of the year for Jeffco schools, and also the MVP for volleyball the year she graduated. When she went on to Texas Arlington, she was the volleyball freshman of the year, first team all-conference, for the Southland Conference Team MVP, UTA's Female Athlete of the Year, and she went on and on, also ran track for UTA, and she was introduced into their Hall of Fame in 2008 for her athletics. A little bit more about her. Her friends always called her Hoy. That was her nickname in high school. She remembers 3 people, really, or more than that, but 3 that she mentioned. Jeff Gomer was one of her coaches, and Betty Kruger was her volleyball coach. And they pushed her to be the best she can be and always believed in her, and she speaks so highly of both of those. Joe Domko was a teacher here that got her into social studies teaching here, and she mentioned him as well. She learned a lot of discipline from Betty Kruger. Betty Kruger is also in the Jeffco Hall of Fame as a volleyball coach years ago. One memory from Jeff Gomer that Heather was telling me about, when she was a junior, she said, "Coach, I got a surprise for you at the league meet." And he said, "Well, what is it?" She said, "You'll see." And she ended up being first in every event in the Jeffco League meet, and then went on to be the eventual state high jump champion that year as well. She met her husband Billy in college. She's got 4 kids, and they are Savannah, Garrett, Sydney, and JoJo. And I think many of them are going to be they're going to be here today. She's also coached all of them at Stanley Lake, and has enjoyed coaching. I can go on and on about Heather, but she's an outstanding woman, and the main thing I'd say is that she has given her whole life and career to this community and done an outstanding job for Stanley Lake High School and the community, and her positive attitude. She's one of those people I like to say has the Midas touch. Anyone she touches and works with turns to gold, and I can say that for all of her kids and the community here and the way that people like her. Congratulations, Heather, into your induction into the Jeffco Hall of Fame. I can't think of a more deserving person, and for all the things you've done for the Stanley Lake community, thank you.
Hello, my name's John Anderson. I was a former head basketball coach here at Golden High School, and today I have the honor of inducting Mark Melancon into the 2025 Jeffco Athletics Hall of Fame. When you look at 3 sports athletes in the state of Colorado, there's 2 names that are clearly at the top of the list, and to me it's Dave Logan, former Jeffco standout at Wheat Ridge High School, and Mark Melancon, 3 sports standout here at Golden. During Mark's time at Golden, his senior year, he led his football team to the state championship game where he threw for 400 yards. Basketball, he led the basketball team to the Final Four. And then finally in baseball, Mark was the winning pitcher in Game 1 on Championship Saturday and closed out the championship game that day, leading the Demons to the title. Following his great career at Golden High School, Mark went on to the University of Arizona, where in his first year, Mark had 6 wins and led the Arizona Wildcats to their first World Series, College World Series in 18 years. Mark's sophomore year, he set the all-time saves lead for the University of Arizona. Following his career at Arizona, Mark was drafted by the New York Yankees, and a memorable debut that I will never forget, watching with my family, my 2 young boys, as Mark took the mound at Fenway Stadium in his debut with the Yankees, and proceeded to go 1-2-3 against 3 All-Stars for the Red Sox. The next inning was more Melancon-like. The first batter, Mark gave up a single. Second batter, he hit. Third batter, Mark walked him. But Mark always rose to the occasion when things got tough, and then got the next 3 batters out, giving up no runs in his debut. Mark's career in the major leagues as a closer, some of the highlights: he was 4-time All-Star pitcher, and another great moment for me was watching Mark pitch in the 2021 All-Star game at Coors Field. Mark also set the all-time leading record for the Pittsburgh Pirates with 51 saves in a season. Mark 2 times led the National League in saves and won the Trevor Hoffman Award. He was also, in 2015, finished 8th in the Cy Young ballots. Another one of Mark's fine major league accomplishments was he developed an adept stretching program for the San Francisco Giants. That one's for you, Stretch. And of all of his accomplishments, the thing that stands out most to Mark and what he's most proud of is father to Brooklyn, Ella, and Jack. And he also coaches them in multiple sports. His kids obviously play 3 or 4 sports. And he's also, another great accomplishment, he's a great husband to Mary Catherine. He's a great son, brother, and friend. So today it is a lifetime honor for me to get to induct Mark Melancon into the 2025 Jeffco Athletics Hall of Fame.
Hello, my name is Priscilla Strong, and I'm a former teacher, high school principal, and central office administrator here in Jeffco. And it is my honor to introduce Miss Jenn Bradley as a 2025 inductee into Jeffco's Athletic Hall of Fame. I met Jenn in 1996 when Arvada West was encountering significant change. The school was ballooning to over 2,400 students and welcoming both a freshman and sophomore class. The students and staff had to navigate that change, chart the course for Arvada West's future while preserving its history of excellence. Leaders emerged quickly, and Jenn was one of them. Jenn was a sophomore in my English class, and I learned many things about her quickly. Although quiet in the classroom, she was respected and well-liked by her peers. She was the type of student that other students wanted to partner with when collaborating or completing class projects. She set clear academic goals for herself and often sought feedback. Jenn realized the importance of increasing her skills and mastering the content. Although English, I'm sure, was not her favorite subject, she understood its importance in her future career. Jenn knew that making good choices and pursuing her goals would help her become a stronger person and prepare her for college. Jenn's pursuit of excellence was not contained to the classroom. It transferred into her love of athletics. Jenn was a 4-sport varsity athlete during her time at Arvada West High School, playing softball, basketball, soccer, and golf. And it was during this time that I was able to see Jenn's fierce competitive spirit transfer and show her true passion for athletics. I had multiple opportunities to watch Jenn play softball and play basketball. And it was though a switch would flip. Jenn would become incredibly intense and very focused. She only saw the field, the players, and the ball. Time and again, I watched her anticipate the moves of an opposing player, communicate effectively with her teammates, and adjust her game to meet what was needed by the team and to maximize the team's potential to win. Jenn was an exceptional athlete, and what I saw during that period of time was a level of drive and persistence that was paired with a team orientation. And that showed a maturity in her that I rarely saw as a sophomore. Throughout the years, I watched Jenn continue to grow and succeed both on and off the field. I've had the opportunity to talk with several of Jenn's coaches throughout the last few weeks. Let's start with Jim Hines. Jim was the varsity girls basketball coach at Arvada West High School during Jenn's freshman and sophomore years. Now remember, in 1995, ninth graders attended junior high during the day and traveled to the high school for practice and competitions. It was unusual for a freshman to earn quality playing time on a varsity team. And although Jim's varsity team was formidable and incredibly skilled, one of the first things that he recounted to me was a memory of Jenn her freshman year, specifically in the state basketball tournament, when Arvada West High School successfully defeated Arapahoe High School and moved on to the finals. Jim talked about the fact that it was Jenn's contribution, in fact, a clutch three-point shot, that was one of the determining reasons why the school was able to move on to the state finals. Jenn became a starter her sophomore year and never looked back. Coach Hines talks about 3 specific qualities that he sees that separate exceptional athletes from really good ones. That is a God-given natural athletic ability that is partnered with strong foundational skills, that it is a competitive drive that produces a fuel that causes the athlete to want to get better every single time she steps on the court, and it's a humility that results in a team orientation where the athlete actually puts the needs of the team above the needs of the individual. For Jim Hines, Jenn Bradley ticked every single one of those boxes. He talked specifically about how hard she worked, that she was always on time for practice, that she always stayed late. She sought feedback, and she was able to take that feedback and apply it immediately, whether that be in a practice or a game situation. I also had the opportunity to talk with Rob Binford and Jamie Thompson, who were both coaches in our Dowd West High School softball program. And although Jody Reinhardt, Jenn's varsity coach, her junior and senior year, has passed away, I'm confident that both Rob and Jamie can speak for Jody as they discussed Jenn as an excellent softball player. They described Jenn as super intense, yet approachable, that she was highly competitive, yet level-headed and a good role model. She was always quick with a smile and took time to foster and nurture the younger players. I had the opportunity the other day to meet Brenna Melancon, who is currently the varsity softball coach at Arvada West, and she was a freshman the year Jenn was a senior. And she solidified those statements, talking about Jenn's excellence as a player and talking about how approachable she was as a teammate and how she was a role model for the younger players. Basically, the theme that emerges in anyone that I spoke to about Jenn Bradley is that she was a fierce competitor who was always team-oriented, that she was always the first to shoulder a loss and the last to take credit for a win, that she was an exceptional athlete, leader, and role model. In speaking with these coaches, they also identify what they see are the components that lead to an individual's induction into the Athletic Hall of Fame. That being athletic excellence, longevity, and being a good quality human being. One who reflects, who grows, who makes good choices. Jenn Bradley ticks those boxes for each one of those coaches. So let's take a minute and look at some of the highlights of Jenn's high school and post-secondary career. Jenn was a four-sport athlete during her time at Arvada West High School, playing softball, basketball, soccer, and golf. Now that was unusual at that point in time and almost unheard of now, as most athletes specialize in one or two sports. In basketball, Jenn was a four-year varsity player. She was first-team All-Jeffco, honorable mention All-State. She averaged 17 points a game her senior year, and she was a repeat CHSAA three-point shooting competition winner her junior and senior years. In softball, she was a four-year varsity player, first-team All-Jeffco, honorable mention All-State. In soccer, again, a four-year varsity player, second-team All-Jeffco. And in golf, she was a two-year varsity player, and she was number 2 on the girls' golf team. Jenn's excellence in basketball earned her a full 4-year basketball scholarship to Santa Clara University. While at Santa Clara University, Jenn's accomplishments included the following: being a Christine Silvernell Award winner her freshman and sophomore years, Coaches Award winner her senior year, Student Athlete Leadership Counselor her junior and senior years, Bronco Scholar, Athlete of the Season her senior year, with a GPA of 3.89. As she graduated from college, Jenn began her coaching career as a Division I basketball coach. She spent 5 years as an assistant coach at Santa Clara University, 1 year as an assistant coach at Colorado State University, and 3 years as an assistant coach at Southern Illinois. In 2012, Jenn made a decision to return to her roots and transition her focus to K-12 education. She started as a high school basketball coach and athletic director in Chandler, Arizona from 2012 to 2016. She took her team from a record of 1-17 to 15-3, becoming the regional champs and state qualifier in just 2 years' time. Jenn's team qualified for the state tournament in every subsequent year that she led them. In 2015, she became the high school athletic director in Gilbert, Arizona. Her accomplishments in that role included being the 1A East Regional Chair Representative for 5 years, the Title IX Gender Equity Committee member for 6 years, Sportsmanship and Ethics Committee member for 5 years, and she started an athletic department in a newly opened high school, beginning with 2 sports per gender and concluding with 22 teams. In 2024, Jenn decided to return to Colorado and is now the athletic director at St. Mary's Academy. As you can see, Jenn Bradley is an exceptional woman. Her excellence in the classroom and on the field has led to her nomination. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Jenn Bradley as a 2025 inductee into Jeffco's Athletic Hall of Fame.